This week on Waxing the Porpoise, G-Baby and the usual suspect Steve get lost under Western eyes to discuss 2015's brutal yet refined horror western Bone Tomahawk. Side quests include Steve popping his jury duty cherry and the horrors of the U.S. legal system, G-Baby's newest culinary creation, the Alfredo-rrito, and that feeling you get when you're 8 high lifes deep and Drops of Jupiter comes on. Go ahead, skin it. Skin that smokewagon and see what happens. Let's wax this barbaric porpoise.
Chase, don't do that.
You see, we working on his brow chakra. We're just in back at the crown chakra.
I didn't bring any chaser. Yeah. Okay.
Leave it in.
All right. Welcome to Waxing the Porpoise. We're back at it again. This time we decided to audible and just pick a movie to check out. This week we're on episode 32 now, and we ran with Bone Tomahawk from 2015 by S. Craig Zoller. As a reminder, Waxing the Porpoise here, we review a film my co-host Steve has never seen before, in hopes of bringing up his cinematic acumen to a higher place. You win some, you lose some. I think we're like 85 or 86%. I think Possession brought us down. Maybe 84% approval rate from all the movies we've seen thus far. And then we also sprinkle in occasionally your unexplained, unsolved, kind of mysterious true crime cases that haven't been done to death. Some more unique ones, I guess, which we'll be getting back to as well. And then we've had kind of a grab bag of episodes, one of which next week I'll tease in a little bit, that we're shooting for will be kind of like a kind of open-ended, open world, just discussion about whatever, potentially. So at any rate, yeah, you got myself, Jim G-Baby.
The funk of 40,000 years.
And as always, we have our co-host, the usual suspect, Steve. How are you doing, man?
Good, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
50,000 no get elephant in it. 50,000 get you bow tie. Bow tie!
Oh, Todd! How's your week been?
It's good. It's been good. I've got jury duty on Monday, so that'll be a first. I'm not necessarily
first timer.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the notice several times, but every time I call and my group is not required to go.
Right.
So this is the first time I'm going to have to go. I'm not really dreading it or looking forward to it either way. It could be cool to get put on a jury if it's an interesting case. Or it could also just be like a colossal waste of time.
Or really just, in my mind, boring more than anything.
And it could also be like a very scary venture to see, like, oh, if I'm ever dragged to court and my life is on the line, these are the fucking scumbag pieces of shit who are going to be deciding whether or not I go free or not. I kind of had a similar experience recently where I know we've said on the show before, but I have a concealed carry permit and I have to go and renew it every couple of years. And I'm as pro gun and pretty much as you can get, but even when I'm in these classes, I'm looking around like, Jesus Christ, these are people walking around with weapons all the time. Like, it's scary. It's scary, but you know, it's just, it's the reality of the world. Like, I had this fucking 85-year-old guy sidle up to me and want to just chat when we were waiting for some other people to go through their like shooting test. And I'm like, lady, you're scaring me. Like, he's all fucking shaky, like when he's doing his shooting test. Like, oh God.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, it would be cool. It would be cool to be on an interesting like murder case. I've been following this case in the news recently that just finished. I'll give you like the quick 30-second rundown. It was a self defense case, or he was charged with murder, but he was claiming self defense. He was down in New Mexico. This guy used to be a professional skier, the type of skier that you like get in a helicopter up in Alaska and you like fly to the top of some crazy mountain and get out and fucking ski down.
And they film it?
Yeah, pretty wild stuff.
Okay.
So he's originally from New Mexico. He's going back there to buy some land or whatever. The guy he's potentially buying this land from is a little bit of a... Sounds like he's got a little bit of an anger problem and a little bit of a drinking and cocaine problem. So the potential seller comes over to the property one day where the guy's being allowed to stay while he thinks about buying it or whatever. And they get into an argument. They get into like a physical fight. The guy starts like beating him with mace, the guy who owns the house, like beating him with a mace container. The skier, he goes to grab a gun, and then they're fighting over the gun. And as they're fighting over the gun, it discharges like 15 times, like up, down, sideways. They had some ballistics that show like the gun's fucking upside down against the ground, like shooting down, shooting up.
Damn.
And the skier ends up coming out alive. The other guy does not. But it's pretty much the definition of a self-defense claim. Like they're both fighting over the gun. Whoever gets the gun is going to live, and whoever doesn't dies. But
Right.
this poor fucking guy has been sitting in jail for the last 2.5 years. They go through the trial. I mean, it's streaming if anybody wants to watch it on YouTube. The guy's name is Dean Cummings, the entire trial. The state had such a dog shit case that they came back with a not guilty verdict after, like, I don't know, lunch. It was so quick that
Damn.
they had nothing on this guy, and he sat in jail for 2.5 fucking years. Imagine if you were taken out of your life right now for 2.5 years. Yeah, good luck paying your mortgage. You'd lose your job, probably alienate
like
your
a
wife and
tornado.
kids.
Yep.
Yeah, and now they're like, you're free to go.
You're
Sorry.
free to go. You probably have $350,000 in debt. You're like, your credit's eviscerated. Your credit cards have probably been maxed out. You're just fucked financially. And then, all those other things in the wake of that. Dude.
So it's possible, like, not only his real life expenses, I've heard estimates in general for like murder defenses, because he had really good lawyers on his side. Thank Christ for him. There's chances are his legal defense was in the six figures before it even like went to trial. And yeah, so add that on top of not having income and regular life expenses. Crazy shit. So all that in a roundabout way of saying it's scary if you find yourself in the crosshairs of the criminal justice system, even if you're completely innocent. So
yeah, I mean, that situation, I think there's something to be said for, like, maybe being a better judge or of who you're dealing with, or maybe just me. I don't know. I mean, it could happen to anyone, but that's the kind of things like where I think I'm glad I'm pretty boring, because then there's not a lot of opportunities to put myself in situations where weird shit like that can happen, like they say, more money, more problems.
Yep, they do. They be saying that.
But yeah, no, that sucks, because I'm sure there's other examples of like much more mundane and like shit that you couldn't see coming or avoid, and you just find yourself in accidentally where you're totally in the right and you're just like reacting to a situation, and you do the right thing, but something like that, there's a tussle and there's a gun, and then like someone's dead, then you gotta go through the machine of the legal system and all the proper procedures, and like. What is I can't remember the line there from The Outsider. The guy says, he's like, you're on like the litigation train or the state's train, and it's like it goes very slow and it doesn't stop very often or something like that. But that would fucking suck to find yourself in that kind of situation and just like have it all your life burned to the ground, and then all right, later.
Yeah, and it's not like you can go after them after the fact, like, hey, this prosecution was bullshit, you owe me money. They're like, no, we don't. Enjoy your freedom.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
Anyway, not to derail
no,
from
that's cool.
from
I
the
mean,
very beginning, but
I've no, that's interesting. I can't remember the last time I went to jury duty, but I mean nowadays too. I mean, fuck, you just bring an extra charger, like mobile charger for your phone, and just get some good pod lined up to beat the boredom. But yeah, who knows? Maybe you'll get into a trial that's interesting. I had a teacher growing up, I think in junior high or early high school. She talked about she was on like a murder trial and it lasted for like I don't know 3 or 4 months, and she's like it was really interesting. She's like I wouldn't really
damn,
want to do it again, but I was kind of younger. She's like I just got out of college, and she's
that's
like
a
some of the
long
people,
trial.
yeah, she said some of the people that they would pull in like inmates from the jail where the guy was being held, like they had some info, and she's like dude, some of these guys were characters. Like they were just like eating it up getting to be out of the prison and like going to the trial, and like yeah,
Yeah,
but
should be
something, yeah,
interesting.
you get like a long duration, and yeah, or God forbid you had to be sequestered or something. Like I could see that being like, fuck, let's get this over with.
Yeah,
That's another thing to be said for like, I don't know if I've talked with you ever about this, but I've heard, like the idea of like professional jurors or somehow like policing and like, you know, having like an infrastructure built around like people that are like professional jurors that you would pull from, because you like you said, the normal average Joe going in on shit, it's like that's kind of scary to think like your fate is in their hands,
yeah,
where there could be like potentially a third party that's unbiased and has a professional like kind of like do no harm kind of thing, like doctors do, like that kind of
hmm
mantra, and then go in and then like they professionally like because they're more used to hearing, and like you can't like hoodwink someone that's
right.
maybe not up on laws, that kind of thing. Like
So, are you familiar with what a bench trial is?
I've heard that, but I
So,
I feel a little ashamed saying I don't know what that
I mean,
means.
it's not. I don't think it's super common knowledge, but like a bench trial is the
Is that just
opposite
with
of
the judge?
right. So
Okay.
some states you're allowed to like demand a bench trial. Other times you can request one, but it's kind of what you're referring to. Like if you're completely innocent, the adage or the I guess generally accepted thought process is if you're innocent, you want a bench trial because you don't want to leave it up to 12 people who weren't smart enough to get out of jury duty.
Right.
But if you're guilty, you do want a jury trial because you just need one dipshit
Yeah.
to hang the whole thing. So yeah, that's kind of the different schools of thought on that. But
Yeah, depends on what your intention, like what your reason for being in that place is. Like, because like yeah, if you're guilty and you're trying to get off, it's like yeah, I do want that. I don't want this unbiased third party system
yeah,
of like learned uh, folks in law.
hmm
I want this dipshit over here that can maybe let that we can
just emotionally appeal to one
persuade.
person on that jury.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's not to make this even longer. There's this idea of a rogue juror. Like this was a problem they think with the Scott Peterson case, where there's a ton of media exposure, and there's some person at home like gets the jury notification, and they're like, "I'm going to get my way on this jury, and to push my
Oh.
influence." And so they're asking you all these questions like, "Can you be impartial?" And fair? Like, "Oh yeah, yeah, for sure." And then once you get
Yeah.
in there, you're trying to influence everybody else. Like, this guy fucking did it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the same thing happened in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Like,
Ghislaine.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of the questions they asked was like about if you were ever a victim of sexual assault of any kind, and uh, if you said yeah, they would dismiss you because it would be harder for you to be impartial or whatever. And one of the guys in the jury didn't disclose that he was like a former survivor or whatever versus victim,
Oh wow.
and was like heavily influencing the jury. So they thought they might get a mistrial on that. I don't think they did, but it might be an appeal point later.
Yeah. Didn't
Whatever.
she get sentenced? Didn't she get sentenced?
Yeah, she's living a cush existence in a federal, like low
Yeah.
security. It's not a pound me in the ass prison.
You ever run backwards through a cornfield for good? Gotta help me, man. Uh, it's my bitch, Nate. Uh, all right. One thing I'm kind of proud to share going hard 90-degree turn is I did a little bit of work in the garage. I lost track of time. It was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon today. I was like, I'm fucking hungry. I barely had breakfast. I think I just had coffee. And so I come in and I was like, I'm going to mac something. And then I remembered we did the night previous, last night we got a rotisserie chicken from the local grocer and we made Alfredo at home, Alfredo and noodles and broccoli. And that's like, you put them all together. Um, so I was like, I'm on a big burrito kick right now too, like putting everything in a flour tortilla. So I was like, okay, so the base, I'm going Alfredo noodles atop the flour tortilla. I take the broccoli and I split it with my fingers
Uh-huh.
across. And then I take the rotisserie chicken. I get some dark meat. I get some of the wing. I get some skin. I like place it all in there real good. Throw it on the pan. Fry it up. A little bit of butter on the pan. Dude, bomb.
This
Super
sounds
quick.
like
The
potentially
Alfredo-rrito.
the Alfredo-rrito. I stepped all over it. Alfredo-rrito. Um, this kind of sounds like this week's installment of Random Acts of Fat,
Yes. Yeah, totally. But dude,
but
it was
there's
good.
broccoli on it.
Yeah, so I didn't go, and I did sprinkle some cheese on it. So fuck me. But
That sounds good.
yeah, little mozz
Yeah.
to keep with the Italian theme. What's he
Yeah.
say? You can't
Nothing.
mix whatever with
You can't mix Mexican and continental. Yeah, nothing screams Italian like wrapping it in a flour tortilla.
Oh fuck, it was good. I also had some I got into El Yucateco hot sauce. Have you ever had that before?
Uh-huh. Is it what color?
I got the black, the smoky habanero reserve. Dude.
Is that the spiciest? Because I know the green and red are
No,
pretty spicy.
it's the second spiciest. The spiciest one is the XXX Tension, like something.
The
It
ass
looks,
ripper 10,000.
yeah, it's like a it's like, it looks kind of like pink and like light orange. So it's
Oh,
like they
okay.
just put straight habaneros in this thing and
Okay.
ground them up basically. But I think that's their hottest one. But this one tastes like habanero, only smoky, like
Okay.
with the black with the char. Dude, so good. Yeah, that's my favorite hot sauce right now, I think. But yeah, it actually went really well together. So I'm convinced now that the flour tortilla is the preferred food delivery system. So I'm gonna start trying it with all kinds of other shit that you wouldn't think of. Because it's like I don't have to burn a fork doing that. It's like boom, I'm
It
all
is
hands.
it is quite efficient.
All right, I just wanted to share that. And tonight I'm drinking too. I'm pretty psyched. They got it's New Belgium just came out with their holiday ale 7.5 flavors of cranberry and spice. It's actually pretty delightful and it doesn't taste like a 7.5 beer. It's not
Is it
really
kind of
heavy.
is it kind of like Sierra Nevada Celebration?
I think it's easier drinking than that.
Oh, okay.
The cranberry definitely comes in a little bit more, especially on this back end here. But I don't know. I've never been a big celebration guy. Like,
I'm not a huge
tar
fan
and feather
myself.
him.
It just tastes like potpourri. It's like really I don't even know how to describe it. Not my favorite.
Yeah, like that and Bigfoot. I was just like, or even Narwhal. Really, I don't really care for by Sierra Nevada. But it's just, at that point, I feel like you're just hitting like cough syrup is where it gets for me.
Sure.
Like I want to be able to taste like some more of the, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big heavy beer fan, other than like an Irish car bomb. Like those are just fucking tasty. Like
Sure.
those are just delicious. Um, all right, so let's get into this thing here.
Yeah.
I kind of picked this on a whim, and I was thinking like at first I was thinking of the movie Hostels from 2017 with Christian Bale and Wes Studi. Um, and then that like at the same time, like I associated that with Bone Tomahawk. I was like, oh, that one I think would be up more Steve's alley too. Mainly for like the Kurt Russell connection. He's always dope and everything he does, and it's a western. It's a good western. It's got a nice little twist on it, little zing on the modern western. But Hostels is definitely one I want to come back to in the future, and it's crazy that doesn't have more attention on it. My brother-in-law watched it a while back, and he's like, yeah, it was fucking amazing. And it's weird because it was one of those ones I remember seeing the trailer for, and I was like, hell yeah! I was like, I'm watching this for sure. And it's one of the few that I've ever done that with, and I just ended up never watching it. I think I heard something like a bad review, it's too slow, or it's this, and then I just put it in my rearview mirror, and I just forgot about it completely. But I guess it's supposed to be real dope, really good performances, so that'll be one I want to come back to. But after watching Bone Tomahawk again, I'm actually glad that we'll be talking about this one because I forgot how dope it actually is. So yeah, I guess my quick history is I've seen this. I think this is my third watch. I watched it last night, and yeah, I really like it. It's fucking awesome. I think it's a really good blend of horror and western, and it's not overt. Um, I think when I described this to you, what did I say? It was like.
It was a mix of Apocalypto. I can't remember what you said, but I forgot you had mentioned Apocalypto until I watched it, and I definitely picked up on that and remembered like, oh shit, yeah, he's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I can't. I said it's like a mix between some random western and Apocalypto, which I'll hold to that
Maybe,
too. I
maybe you
feel
said
like it
Tombstone or
is.
something. Whatever way you described it, it was like I like those things.
Yeah, so I thought that was a good pitch to it. Let me see. I gotta because now this is gonna eat me alive. I don't remember what the fuck.
Oh, you said it's like if Wind River went harder into gore, sneaky horror mixed with Apocalypto.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
After the watch again, I don't know if the Wind River is really an apt comparison, but I know you like that flick, so maybe that was
I
part of
do.
me just being a little
A
slimy.
salesman. Well,
But
a little
yeah,
salesman-y, but
shyster.
I like Apocalypto a lot too. That's a good one.
Yeah, Apocalypto is one I think I've only seen that the one time, maybe twice, because it was such an intense experience.
Yeah.
Because I saw it in the theater for sure, and I think I maybe watched I watched half of it on when it was like on cable or something. But yeah, it was intense. Like it's one of those ones where you like thank your stars that you were born in like a modern age, a civilized age.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I liked it so much is I went into it kind of like the movies we've been covering, going into it with absolutely no idea what the fuck to expect at all, like literally nothing. So as it developed,
Right.
it was so much more interesting and cool to see because it was so unusual. You know, like I can't think of any other movie that's kind of like that. So, you know, it was very cool versus seeing a preview for something and having a general idea and going in and expecting that and kind of filling in the holes as you watch it. But
Word. All right. So yeah, I like this film a lot. I think it's fucking dope. What did you think of this?
I loved it. It was
Yes.
it was awesome. It was pretty much everything I like in a movie. The only thing I knew about this movie leading up to it, or I say no loosely, the only time I had heard about this movie, I had associated with it this idea that not only was it like a culty kind of indie following, but it was like a
Mm-hmm.
heavily nerd influenced cult follow. You know, not like, oh yes, this one is a cult following from big movie fans that, you know, sniff their own farts or whatever. The vibe I got was
Right.
like nerdy dudes that were like, this movie's really gory and I like it a lot. So, and I think the
Mm-hmm.
reason why, in hindsight, after thinking about it like all day, why I got that impression, I think I had only heard about it from, let's just call them like socially awkward like card counter type dudes who are like, this movie is really gory and I like it because I'm not allowed to watch scary movies in my mom's basement. But
Yeah.
so I was expecting like a 92-minute over the top, just gory, like gratuitously violent, not great
Yeah.
storyline, just kind of shitty movie. So when I
Mhm.
first loaded it up, I think it was on Peacock or something, whatever it is that there's ads, it said 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what the? But then I looked it up on, I think, IMDb, and it said 2 hours and 15
2 hours
minutes.
and
I'm
12.
like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
that's a little more manageable. And it didn't end up having as many commercials in it as I thought it did. But so that was my first confusion. Like, oh wow, this is like an actual long ass movie. So hopefully
Right.
the story is good enough to sustain interest for that whole time, and it's not just, oh, I cut his head off and then blood came shooting out, and So I was extremely pleasantly surprised by the movie from beginning to end, and I don't know if like I've just become really desensitized to violence and gore, but I didn't think it was too insanely gruesome. Maybe just compared to what I was expecting. There were obviously a few parts that were just insane, and even the way the movie starts with him like sawing the guy's neck. There's something about
Yeah.
knife like stabbing and sawing. That shit bothers me so much more than watching
Yeah.
like shootings or like car accidents. Or there's just something about like the sound and like how you could just picture
How
how
long
much
it
that
actually
fucking
takes.
hurts. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like where
So
1 second probably stretches into like 10 minutes.
I cut my fucking finger the other day just cutting a piece of bread, and it was very traumatic for me. So, but yeah, so this one starts on a great high note of that guy getting his throat sawed open, and
Yeah, like right
David Arquette.
right out of the gate.
I'm
Yeah.
like, David Arquette,
Yep.
I'm in, and
Yeah.
yeah, then it just kind of
I
goes
knew
from there.
the
And
Dewey factor would help.
yeah,
Yeah, I like how they used him in this.
yeah, I did too.
Did you notice the other guy in the beginning too? Aren't you a fan of like Devil's Rejects
Not really, but he looked familiar, and
or House of a Thousand Corpses?
I've seen, I think I've seen both of those maybe once, and that's kind of what I was expecting from this movie. Like, oh wow, look how shocking and gory and crazy, but not actually good this movie is. So when I saw that guy, I
Right.
was like, that's either in my idiot brain, I'm like, is that Rob Zombie? Or like, why do I know him? Was he in one of those shitty movies? Or
Hmm.
was he in like High
Yeah, he was.
Tension? Or like I knew I recognized him from something, but
Holy shit! Wait, are you saying you've seen High Tension before?
I have, yeah.
Wow.
My brother is a big movie guy. So by
Oh,
osmosis,
okay.
I saw like a couple movies that you would
Huh.
probably approve of or whatever, but not very many. So
I know we've talked about this off air, and we can edit this out if we need to as well. But
nope, leave it in.
what? I didn't know your brother was a big movie dude too. Um,
Yeah, he actually
we should have
worked
him on.
on. He worked on I think several. So my ignorance is going to show itself again here. Like I know he worked on a lot of film productions. A lot. I don't know what the definition of that would be, but he definitely did a lot of like behind the camera stuff. And I think he even took like
Oh, really?
broadcasting in high school. So he was kind of always into that stuff. And yeah, it would be interesting to have him on because I know he's worked with another guy that I think they may have even done like a full length feature or a couple like short films. I
Dude.
I don't know for sure because I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you wanna have him on and you guys can wax poetic about some hippy dippy bullshit just watched while I just watched Twister for the thousandth time, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk about that more offline. That sounds like yeah. If he's into it, we should for sure. Maybe see if there's something like that'll flip my mind. You know, maybe something I haven't seen that he's in on. That'd be a cool one. Where he's the like the shaman. Um, okay, cool. So yeah, you like this one. Yeah, it's actually I think its reputation like kind of makes it seem like this is gonna be like really disturbing, like nonstop gore fest. Maybe not so
Yeah.
much, but I mean, it does have some scenes that are definitely punctuated. And there's one in particular that we'll get to towards the end that, like, I was like, oh fuck, man.
Yeah.
But and then like another one that was just like disturbed me on a different level, like apart. But yeah, I mean, I think this guy too, S. Craig Zoller, gets like he gets this reputation because he puts these things in his film, but I think he puts them in like really strategically. And I guess jumping ahead, like in a couple scenes, like towards the end, like when shit really picks up, what I liked about the way he shot the film, and I know this is like a him signature because I've seen his other two films, Brawl and Cell Block 99 with Vince Vaughn, which is good also. I don't like it as much as Bone Tomahawk, and then there's another one with Vince Vaughn again and our guy Mel Gibson in Dragged Across Concrete. I think that's his most recent one from like 2019 or 2020. But
Okay.
that one's very similar. It's gritty. It's like feels very real, and it has some scenes punctuated with like pretty over the top violence and gore. But the way he shoots that stuff, it's not like an action film, like where you zoom in on some dude getting their head blown off and like you get like a slow motion, you get another angle, you know, and it's like really like dramatic and like
Just
you can
in your
tell you're
face.
watching a movie. Whereas this, there's some scenes it's like boom, someone's gets a knife through the a back of their neck that pops out like out of nowhere, and it's like it's all being shot like in one shoot or one take, you know. And like, or another thing happens, someone catches a bow and arrow to the fucking shoulder, someone gets hit with a rock that fucking like disables their arm, and another dude gets like the piece of his forehead sliced off. It's all rapid, and it shows them like oh fuck, and they double back and how they recover from that all in like one shot. I liked
Hmm.
how it wasn't like overly like produced in those shots, because it
Yeah.
to me that's what made it feel like apocalypto, like this shit's really happening to this people, almost like not quite, but almost like you're watching a documentary of this shit,
Hmm.
or like found footage just shot really well on a nice camera. um I like that about this guy, that like the way that the action scenes are shot, um which I think is a unique mark for this guy. But um
Well, and I
I
just
get I
loved.
wanted to touch too. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the other thing I really loved about this movie is I thought it was fucking funny, like from beginning to end. There were so many funny parts, or
Yeah,
just like
what was
clever,
your
like
favorite funny part?
um. I mean, I thought a lot of the dialogue was really good and just clever. There,
Yeah,
it's tough in a movie like this when they're
it
trying
was
to.
like no BS.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a thing with movies that are set in a certain time period where you can tell they're like laboring to sort of speak in that way from that time, and it just seems really
Hmm.
unnatural. And there were a couple parts early on where the dialogue just seemed kind of like stilted or disjointed, or like I was very aware that they were trying to speak of that time, but I didn't
Yeah,
get that vibe for too long. After the first little bit, it just seemed, I don't know, either I stopped noticing it or it stopped seeming weird, or what. But um, I don't know if this would be my
it
favorite
became
part.
like natural.
Yeah, but one of the first lines of dialogue that really made me laugh was when um, Bruder, who I think Bruder might be my
Yeah,
favorite character in the whole movie. He's pretty fucking cool. Uh,
nice. Yeah, I like him a lot too.
He's just like a really cool, like interesting character, and like kind of a scumbag piece of shit. But you also are like rooting for him. He's like a good anti-hero, I guess. So
Yeah.
he is
I'll probably say it right now. He's probably my favorite character too,
okay.
and he's got a little bit of like he's got like a little bit of Val Kilmer in Tombstone, kind of not quite that, but he's got a little bit of Doc Holliday in him. I felt like is what attracted to me to his character.
Yeah. So when he first is escorting the female doctor, or I guess like she's a doctor's assistant, or the doctor they were trying to go get was like too
She's
drunk,
the
so she's like the
yeah, that's her
second.
dad.
The sec- oh, I
Yeah,
didn't pick up
and
on
she's
that.
like waiting. Yeah, that's her dad, and he's like the like straight up OG doctor, and she's following in his footsteps. But you can tell, she's very capable. She proves that, and like she
Yeah,
knows what she's no nonsense.
yeah. So well, I mean, prior to the scene I'm talking about, when Bruder's having the conversation with the piano player, he's like, "Why is one song 3 cents but
Yeah,
three is 10?" That whole thing was funny. Some of the dialogue even kind of gave me like a weird Quentin Tarantino vibe, where it's like this dialogue has
yes,
absolutely nothing to do with the fucking movie at all, but
yeah.
it's really interesting for just like character development if you want to be a douche about it. Like the
We're in the
like
trust tree. It's fine.
like when Chicory and the sheriff are talking about reading a book in the bathtub, and like just that whole scene. It's like this has nothing to do with anything at all, but I really enjoyed that scene and that whole
Yeah,
conversation. But anyway, the scene I was talking about that I don't know why it just made me laugh is when Bruder's escorting the wife over to the jail, and Arthur, who's still laying in bed, he's like, "Bruder, any flirtatious comments to my wife, there'll be a reckoning." I don't know why. I just love that part.
yeah. That is a good scene,
Just you can just
and
hear
they
his
come
voice
back to
coming
that
from
later.
the back bedroom, like, "Bruder, any flirtatious comments in front of my wife?"
Yeah. I like when they see it's good that they put that in because it kind of sets the stage for later on when, people are at their breaking point or close to
Uh
it and
huh.
like things have gotten real. That comes back and he's like, because he probably feels that way all the time. But when he's in normal civilized life, he's got to like play it off like, yeah, you better not fuck around with my wife. Later on, it comes out, it's like, you tried to fuck her. Like, and he's like, that
Uh
was
huh.
years ago, man. Like, so
Yeah.
I like how in a pretty short period of time we don't stay at like the main town settlement in this. I mean, we're in a western, so it's a small town called Bright Hope, and I like how you get to meet pretty much all the key players in this small town all at once, and you get a vibe of like, who's who, and you get a little bit of backstory on each one. Like you can tell that the mayor isn't respected. Sean
Yeah.
Young is in this from Blade Runner. Uh, she's the mayor's wife that does all the talking and thinking for him. And
Oh,
then, yeah,
I
you
didn't
get to
realize
meet
that.
yeah, you get to meet the deputy, you get to meet, Chicory, you meet oh, this is the doc's daughter who's married to lives with Arthur. Like you get all these things set up where in the town pretty quickly. I think he does that really economically. Like you get a quick snapshot of like who's who in this town, and then there's a little bit of importance attached to each of them. Um, but it doesn't drag. Although I remember looking at this and I was like, fuck, I didn't realize this was 2 hours and 12 or 2 hours and 15 minutes. I was like, I could see that maybe being a knock, like that it was a little too long. But then when I watched it, I was like, this is one of the rare movies where I feel like it feels quicker than the actual runtime.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah. I
agree, or was that one
oh
of your
yeah.
knocks?
No, 100%. The only reason I was aware of time passing was because I think it was Peacock, whatever app it was. They
It
would
was
cut in.
Pluto.
Oh, maybe Pluto. They cut in like every 9 minutes with a commercial, but every commercial was for State Farm. So, like, I know we've talked about this on different movies where the timing where they cut in is just fucking bananas. They won't wait for a scene to break.
Right. There's no
So they'll-
rhyme or reason. They're just
No.
looking at like the minute count, and they'll be like, okay, right here.
There was, yeah, exactly. There, I can't remember which scene it was, but there was a scene where like somebody just took like, a hatchet to the face and was like laying on their back, and then it cuts over to fucking Jake from State Farm talking about this annoying chick's insurance, and then it comes back and it's back to the guy
Khakis.
on the ground, and then half a second later it switches to the next scene. Like you couldn't have just moved that, finished the scene, put in your
Yeah.
stupid commercial, and then moved on. So that was the only thing that sort of paced it for me, like, oh shit, it's already been 9 minutes or whatever. Because yeah, it didn't drag for me anyway at all.
Nice.
I felt so dumb when I looked at the cast afterwards because the guy who plays Chicory, Richard Jenkins, who's in everything.
Yeah.
If
Go
anybody,
back
Doback. What was that?
from Step Brothers.
Oh yeah, the dad. They told me to
Yeah.
get
John C. Reilly's dad.
they told me to get a fucking job and stop being a dinosaur. Yeah, he's also the dad in that show 6 Feet Under, which I don't know if you ever watched, but that was a good show.
I've never caught that. Kelsey's a big fan. I've never.
I thought you had said your wife likes it. It's a good show. I would recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of those ones on my list I need to get to before I die.
But yeah, I like the guy a lot. Had no idea that was him the entire time, which I was really surprised by.
Yeah, he has this weird affectation, like on his talk, and he's kind of like trembly and like he's kind of almost like a village idiot kind of guy that means really well. So he's endearing, but kind of annoying at the same time. Like, all right, shut the fuck up. And he has this weird wiry white beard, and he looks really weathered and old because he filmed this. I think this was right when he was also in Cabin in the Woods. Have you ever seen Cabin in the Woods?
No.
You'd probably like it. I think you would like it. That's a more of a mainstream film, but maybe that would be a good one probably if we're still doing this like next Halloween. That would be a really good one because it takes like the whole horror, like kids at a cabin and weird shit. Kind of, it's got a lot of Evil Dead influence going on, and turns it on its head, like a really like cool twist. But anyway, he's in it, Richard Jenkins, and he's great in it. I think you'd like him in it a lot. But yeah, I liked his character, Chicory. What else was I going to say? Oh, real quick, back to that point that you said you liked when he's like fucking with the piano player about like, one song is 3 cents and 3 for 10 or whatever. Did you recognize that piano player at all? The bald piano player?
Nope.
So he is, you probably won't, maybe you will. He's the principal from Back to the Future.
I haven't seen that in so long.
It's like, Jesus, didn't he ever have hair?
I honestly
Like,
have
you're
no
a slacker, just like your father.
I have no memory of that movie.
Okay, so you probably know he in Top Gun 1, he plays that guy at the bank. He's like, you fucked this up, I'll have you fly and rub a dog shit to Hong Kong.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's been in a couple things. He's a good character, like side actor. He's always like chomping on like a fucking cigar. But yeah, I thought that was cool that he was in here. But yeah, that part I was like, oh, dude, I could see Steve being all over this part, like him interrogating him about the price per fucking song on the piano. But okay, I think too like we should just run through like the primary cast just real quick. Kurt Russell, obviously in this, he's awesome as per usual. I liked how understated he was. Like I feel like his lines, and he didn't play it way over the top. I think he played it just right, and like his responses are like snappy, very economical, few words. Like it's like, yeah, it's probably hard to break out of that for people of a certain age that have seen Tombstone and know him as fucking Wyatt Earp.
Yeah. Or even
it's probably hard to
Hateful Eight
break it.
was kind of a similar character.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been a leading guy in a lot of action stuff, so you have a certain way of thinking about this guy. But I thought he played it like pretty understated, really, at the end of the day, and I liked that a lot. I also liked. I remember the first time watching it, I didn't really care for him, but after seeing, I can't remember what season of Fargo, the TV show. Do you recognize the guy Patrick Wilson who played Arthur, the guy with the bum leg?
No.
Have you ever seen any of the Fargo TV series?
Mm-mm.
Dude, strong recommend for
Yeah.
especially the first season and the second season. Um, well, fuck it, I say all of them, but the first and the second. The first for Billy Bob. Billy Bob's fucking just perfect in season one, and season two they go back to like the '60s, and Patrick Wilson is in it. He's pretty much your main character. He's fucking great. He's awesome.
Yeah, I liked him in
He's
this
been in
a
a
lot.
yeah, he's good. He's great in this too. He's been in a lot of stuff. I think a lot of people know him if you've seen Watchmen. He played the owl guy. I'm not a big Watchmen or comic fucking cheat codes guy, but um, I read literature, dog. Um, he played Owl Man or Man Owl in Watchmen. He's been in a few other things.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I liked his character.
I don't know if you'll share the sentiment at all, but with all the like gory stabbing and clubbing and arrows and all that shit, I felt some of the most physically uncomfortable I felt in this movie is when he would like fall and eat shit with his leg. Like I could just
Yeah,
feel
and
that.
they
Like,
throw in that
"Ugh."
fucking foley of like they'd throw in specifically like a sound of a crunch
Yeah,
or like a rip tear or a crunch where it's like they're trying to put in your brain like, yeah, he just fucked up his leg again on that fall.
yeah,
Like, because I've done that before. Like, I remember I broke an ankle and I was on crutches for a while, and I know that when you like forget you have a cast and crutches, and you just like, or maybe it's me, I'm just a fucking idiot. I forget for a second. I put weight on that thing when I had a
yeah,
cast on, and it's just like, like
yeah.
knife stab. It's dude, yeah. So I definitely felt that too. Like, there's long stretches where he's like fucking around on that thing, and that leg is like, dude, like they almost cut it off at one point because they think he might turn to. He's like, Robbins, smell that leg.
Yeah.
Tell me if it's south of cheese. Like,
Well, and that scene you're talking about, I was getting more and more uncomfortable because I thought they were going to show something like overly gross, but then like right as he goes to hit it, it flashes away.
hard cut.
I
Yeah,
was like,
hard
oh,
cut.
thank God, because I felt like that would have been a really cheap opportunity to just like, oh,
Yeah,
So as
and it
gory,
turns out that was bullshit anyway because they didn't take his leg. So that was kind
well,
of
they
like
were. I think he was just breaking it to reset it, right? That's what I thought they were saying.
okay. Well, after the fact, because in the moment I was like, it sounded like I think the last thing Kurt Russell said was like, "We're gonna have to take that leg."
Well,
Like I thought that's what they were doing.
So when he's laying there and he unwraps it and he looks at Kurt Russell and like shakes his head, I thought when they're arguing back and forth and he tells him to, look at it, I thought when he looked down, the bone was sticking out, like he had fucked it up so bad that the bone had
Right.
and so, he was saying, I think we're going to have to take the leg or whatever. And he was saying like, well, can you set it? Like, can you just re-break it and put it
Oh,
back?
okay. Maybe I missed that piece of dialogue. Okay.
I could be wrong, but then yeah, when he went to go hit it, I was like, ugh, and then they flashed away real quick.
Yeah. Okay, so we already touched on Richard Jenkins, who plays Chicory. Who I gotta say at the beginning, I was like, I think this fucker is gonna be annoying, but I think maybe around the halfway point, he won me over. But if he doesn't, I think he'll win. He'll definitely win you over towards the end. Like he's got
Yeah.
a nice moment with Kurt Russell, and he's not so annoying and like one of these lackey fuckers because he does play like he's like a hanger on like right next to your fucking hip, and that can be really annoying. But I think he balances that. But the next person I want to talk about, Bruder, who I think from this point forward, just so I keep it straight, is like I always think of him as Jack from Lost. So Matthew Fox plays this guy named Bruder, who's very like Doc Holliday-ish. He's the only guy in all white. He's got all white duds, like fucking like shirt, like vest, little hat, So he looks like one of these like a dandy, like
Yeah.
sharpshooter, like gunslinger.
He's a cock of the walk. He's like a bachelor. Mr.
Yeah.
Cool Guy.
Man about town. I got meetings. Could you love me, Greg? So he plays this like kind of cocky, like I think they're wanting to like intimate like, okay, this is the guy that's the ego, the cocky, overcompensating asshole who's, you know, he's got some stuff going on, but he wants you to think like he's like the biggest baddest around, and he is. I think he backs that up, but I think there's more to it, you know, because they touch on it too really quickly. Like he brags about how many Indians he's killed and this and that, and they have in this town once. Well, I guess too. So we got to talk about one of the stable boys gets killed because these Indians come back because they know where David Arquette has absconded to because they killed Sid Haig from Rob Zombie fame for walking into their territory. And these fuckers are like base level, like super savage. They don't have any speech. That's where the apocalypto comes into play. Like these hardcore Aztecs who are just like, you know, these like they're committed to like sacrifice and they believe in all these things. They come back to this nice little establishment, this settlement.
Yeah, and they're like apex warriors, you know, not to be fucked
they're,
with.
They're pretty much like predators, you know, like that's what I thought immediately. I was like, oh, these are like fucking just like savage motherfuckers that are badass. And
keep saying
like,
savage. Yeah. That's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I don't mean it in that way. I just mean like they are like nothing is off limits here. Yeah. So they come into this little peaceful, like supposedly civilized, you know, town of Bright Hope, and they abscond with Arthur's wife, the David Arquette, who plays Purvis, just a fucking thief, like highwayman kind of person, and the deputy Nick. So this kind of starts a powder keg in the town where they got to go look for him. So Bruder's this like, I can't tell if he lives there, if he's just some kind of like traveling dandy, like drifter that's got a reputation like as a gunslinger type guy. Pretty much the guy that you would want to have in town, like that has some kind of attachment to this thing to go out and help you, like a raiding party to go get these people back. So he's like, you know, I feel a little bit responsible for fetching the doctor to go attend on this person. And like, that's why she's gone. She's been kidnapped by this tribe of the Valley of the, what was it called? The Valley of the
Dead
something
guy
man
or something.
I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, so they bring in like they have a town professor who's like a friendly native who has like, you know, assimilated to, you know, like he wears a suit and everything. So he's giving them intel. He's like, yeah, these people are fucking bad people. They're like centuries old. They've never come out of the old ways. And he calls them troglodytes, you know, like they're just like you said. I think apex predator is the perfect example. Like zero empathy, like pure like survival and like kill whatever to subsist. Like that's what we're dealing with. And so our guy Jack Bruder, Matthew Fox, he's like, I've killed all these fucking Indians. I've killed more than any man in this room. And our Indian professor, who's played by, what is his name? Zahn McClarnon. He's been in a couple other things. He was in Dr. Sleep recently. I saw him in Dr. Sleep, and he was fucking awesome in that. He was great. He's like, that's a pretty disgusting boast or something like that. Yeah. And he's like, and Bruder's like, it is not a boast, but a fact. Mm-hmm. You know, so he's got this ego trip, like he's killed a shit ton of Indians. He wears that like a fucking chip on his shoulder, badge of pride, and he's like a badass gunslinger, you know, with an ego. So you could see I think he fits into that anti-hero kind of mold perfectly. But
Yeah.
at any rate, so that starts us off with this raiding party, obviously led by Kurt Russell. He's our lead. He's the town sheriff, so he's like, I'm gonna do this. Along with Richard Jenkins, who plays Chicory, and then we have Matthew Fox, and then also Arthur, played by Patrick Wilson. He's on a bum fucking leg, like he fell off a roof, and he's in a bad way. Like this leg looks like dog shit, and he's having to crutch his way across like the countryside to go find his kidnapped wife. I think from there, it just shows like the struggles
I think you froze.
Did I?
Maybe it was on my end, but
I didn't on my end.
It
should be okay for the way this stuff works. It should be good for the local recording.
Okay,
but
I don't know if you want to mark it.
Yeah, I'm gonna mark it, and I'll double check when I go back to edit.
Because there was like
there's any weirdness.
5 or 10 seconds where it was just like frozen. Your picture, anyway.
All right.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry to.
No, you're good. So at that point, our raiding party has embarked, and one thing I wanted to come back to as well was some of the levity, some of the humor that's dropped into this. Another point that I really liked is I think the first night they're setting up camp. Again, it emphasizes, Jack Matthew Fox's ability, like his ego is backed up. Like he's this isn't his first rodeo. He starts setting up like a tripwire that has like bells on it to surround their camp, in case someone comes through that line, they'll hear it, and he's like, as soon as you hear bells, you just fucking shoot, So he's like all business at this point. But when he's setting up camp, he's like, "Are any of you somnambulous?" Somnambulous, which is like the fucking scientific term for people who sleepwalk. And when he says that, he's like, are any of you guys somnambulous? Fucking our guy Chicory, who's got a screw loose, he's like, hey, that's what I keep in private. And he's like, I mean, do you sleepwalk at night? And he's like, oh yeah, no, we're good.
That was funny.
That part gave me a good chuckle.
When it wasn't too long after that, right? And I think it was that same camp where he's like, "I'm obviously the most intelligent one out of all of us."
Yeah, like he makes no bones about being like, he's like, "Yeah, I'm the biggest, baddest sumbitch here, like with a gun and with my mind." Like he's very tactile, and it seems like this is the guy I want on my side, like leading this 3-day journey on horseback to find these fucking hardcore, like have never come out of the Stone Age, like Indians that are gonna just like fuck us up hardcore. This is the guy I want on my side.
Yeah, he seems like a post Civil War mercenary, just like a gun for hire.
Yeah, totally.
Well, because they said at one point in the beginning, I can't remember when they're in the bar, and they're like, yeah, all the dudes are gone for whatever reason. I can't remember what they said, but they said the only people left in town are the wives and children. And then Dapper Dan comes walking in, so clearly he his employment is not that of the other men in town. But I should have paid more attention to the dialogue.
I didn't catch that either. Like I thought this was just a really small like settlement that had just gotten started, so they didn't have many people within it. But yeah, I missed anything else about like any of the other people in town. Excuse me. But yeah, he's definitely a free agent for sure. So I think from there, you get a couple people that kind of they hit their perimeter. They end up killing them. I don't think that's really important to the story. But from there, what results in that is that someone or this pack of these Mexicans that they killed, they come back at night later, and one of them's on top of our guy Bruder, stabbing him. And who is it that kills him? Is it Arthur who gets up and shoots?
I think so.
So he saves his life initially. Yeah. Okay. And so they make off with their horses. So it's like, fuck, we still got like 2 day or day and a half journey. Now we got to do on foot. And now our guy Arthur with the bum leg is having to fucking crutch it from this point on, because before he was riding a horse. And I thought this scene too, kind of, I know we're fixated on Matthew Fox's character, but I think he is a pretty big part of all of this. Is when, you know, it shows he does have some empathy and some feeling when he has this beautiful white horse. And like I said, before, he's all dressed in white. He's this dapper, fucking cocky motherfucker. And of course, he's got like the fastest, nicest, all white, beautiful horse. It ends up like getting maimed or something where he's got to fucking go kill it. And it zooms in on him and it shows him. And he just says, "Thank you for your service." And he puts his colt out of its misery, and he's having a tough time with it, you know. So it gives you a little bit of humanization right there, which I enjoyed.
Well, and one other thing,
was tough.
Yeah, one other thing I would say is when the first two Mexican guys come to the camp, the sheriff and everyone is like, "All right, well, come on closer, you know, we're gonna investigate," and he just shoots and kills both of them. He's like
bang, bang, bang.
He's like, they were either scouts or thieves, and we're not going to fuck around with that or whatever. So he turns out to be right when the rest of them come out. And then shortly after this scene, moving ahead a little bit, there's that scene where he's talking to Chicory about killing women and children. And he's like, they're just as capable of killing you as the men are. So that was like a little bit of foreshadowing for later, I would say. But I mean, yeah, that just kind of goes to show, it goes to even further show his acumen for dealing with crazy shit. Like, I mean, because he knew right away, these guys are trouble. They're not just lost wanderers like the sheriff might want to hope. But yeah, so the women and children thing, I think, is significant for later in the movie.
Yeah, totally. And I think he's the most cynical of the bunch, and rightfully so. And it proves it too, because they do get ambushed a second time by that same raiding party that almost kills him. But he's the one that sees the world for what it really is. And I think at this probably time period when, you know, there's all kinds of lawlessness, it hasn't reached like the quote unquote level of civilization that we're accustomed to now. I think that he plays that just right for that time and place, you know, kind of like, I know you haven't seen it, but like people that have seen The Walking Dead probably have thought a certain way about Shane. I myself was kind of guilty of like not liking Shane very much because he had this hard edge to him, but it turns out it's like that's what everyone else becomes, and that's what you have to become in a world that's kind of upside down like that. You can't trust anyone. You have to be super economical in like every facet. And I mean, Bruder is like the perfect example of that. I think like anybody that's seen Walking Dead, I see a lot of Shane in him, who's played by Joe Bernthal, who was in Fury, who plays who does he play? He's like the real meathead of Fury,
like the tall Pitt. One, the tall guy like who's like always fucking with the new guy.
Yeah, like the most meatheaded, like hardcore out of their group. That's Joe Bernthal. Anyway, but I mean, Matthew Fox character a little bit more civilized than that, I guess. But so from that point, then we're like, they're trucking it on foot to try to find this enclave, this outpost of these quote unquote troglodytes that are holding Arthur's wife and our deputy Nick and the previously absconded thief, David Arquette. So they finally get to this like hole, like a cavern inside of a fucking mountain. And this is when shit like really picks up the pace. And that's what it goes back to, like that camera technique. They go to this spot and they think that okay, this is where they're at, and like Matthew Fox is using like the telescope to like look in, and all of a sudden, boom, he gets hit by a rock, and his left arm gets disabled. Boom, an arrow comes through, hits fucking Kurt Russell in like the left shoulder, and Chicory gets something slung at him that slices the top of his fucking forehead off. They're none of them are killed, but they're kind of like immobilized and in a state of shock. And then at that point, we get these three troglodytes that come out. They're all painted in white. They have these fucking they look like predators, man. Like they're intense, and they have these crazy like bone saw fucking like hatchets and shit from like bisons that they've sharpened down, and it all happens very fast. That's what I like about this guy too, is like all of his violence and action scenes are like, it's like an exclamation point, and they happen like rapid fire, and they don't use a bunch of different shots. It's like one shot where all this is happening. But unfortunately, our boy Bruder, he ends up getting his right hand or left hand split off in half from like an errant. I had to rewind it a couple times this time. Did you have to do that or see like, because at first I was like, did he get his hand sliced in half or his hand sliced off? And he ends up gets it sliced off.
Oh, I thought it just got crushed, and I was afraid to move anything forward or backward because I didn't want to see one more fucking State Farm commercial.
Yeah, I bet. No, yeah. So Chicory shoots one of the dudes, and like one of the troglodytes, he like flails about, and he throws his like cow jawbone fucking hatchet, and it flips up in the air, and it ends up comes down right on the wrist of. That's why he's like, "Hey, Chicory, tie me off," and he ties him off up at the elbow. He's lost his whole right hand.
Sounds like
that left hand.
It sounds like that weapon might be a bone tomahawk.
Oh, there you go. Very good. That's what it was. Yeah.
How fun.
How fun. Yeah. So this is kind of like, this is the point that really endeared me to him, because he's like, all right, I'm going out as a fucking badass. He's like, leave me some fucking dynamite, give me that repeater over there, light me up a fucking cigar. And he even says to Kurt Russell too, he's like, I'm far too much of a vain man to live my life as a cripple.
Yeah.
You know? And,
did he end up using the dynamite? I thought he just shot that last guy.
No, he didn't. Which
okay.
I remembered this wrong, because I thought at the end they go out in like a blaze of glory and he throws up a thing of dynamite, but no, he doesn't do anything with the dynamite.
Okay.
Which is cool, because I think that would have put it over the top. I think of realism, or at least the realism that this movie is setting up. But yeah, so our guy Bruder's fucked up, and they leave him with a repeater, and just as they leave, like another troglodyte like whips around the corner, and he sees him, and he throws another bone tomahawk, and it sounds, you don't see it, they don't show it, but it sounds like Bruder fires off a shot from the repeater. And then later on, as Chicory's getting drugged back, they get ambushed, him and Kurt Russell, they get ambushed by like 5 dudes, and they get pulled away. It shows specifically, they show Chicory laying on the ground, and they're dragging him, and he looks over, he sees one of those troglodytes dead, and then he sees Bruder he's got a bone tomahawk stuck right through his forehead. So it was like a bang bang, like, so he took one, that was his last move, which I was sad to see him go, but yeah. I did think he went out pretty badass. So then this kind of leaves us in the last act of where it really goes like full apocalypto, because they're prisoners, they're in this fucking like weird fucked up little prison area, and they do see that our and we didn't mention her before, her name's Lily Simmons. She's been in stuff, but not anything like super notable that I've known her from, but she plays Samantha, so Arthur's husband, Patrick Wilson's wife. She's in lockup, and then Kurt Russell and Chicory get dragged in. And then this is the scene where I was like, oh fuck. Like, this
Yeah.
was the most intense, and I think gives this movie its reputation.
This is
so
the
they drag,
signature moment.
yeah, like, fuck, man. I had a tough time with this. Not even just like the fucking catching a bone tomahawk that's probably sharpened so fucking sharp it could fucking like saw flies like a gnat's ass off of, but not just that part where he gets hit with that in the dick and split in half, but the part where he's like telling like, hey, give that shit back to my brothers, and they do one incision on his
Uh-huh.
forehead to scalp him, and then they start peeling. Dude, the way he screams
Yeah.
and like reacts to the fucking scalp getting pulled off,
And the
dude,
sound.
I was like,
The sound
fuck.
is pretty good.
Yeah, like I don't know what goes into like practical and CGI. How they were able to meld those two things, but it looks very real. Like it's
Mhm.
hard to watch. And then they stuff that fucking his scalp skin into his mouth and then jam like a fucking like, dude, it looks like the sharpest like fillet knife you've ever seen, and they jam it down his throat and poke it back like 2 times for good measure, so it's like pierced like the back of his throat. I know that's super graphic, but and then of course they flip him over end over end, and they're holding
Flipsy doodle.
both of it. They're holding both of his ankles, and they just start chopping right down the center between his fucking scrot and his Johnson, and then they pull him apart like Mortal Kombat fatality style, like right in half. Fuck.
Yeah.
That was hard to watch.
It was pretty brutal.
It was fucked up. What made it more is I feel like that guy didn't get much screen time, and I've seen he's been in other stuff, so good for him, but like the raw emotion and the guttural like screaming that he puts into that, like it puts you right there. Like I was like, oh god, how horrifying must that fucking be? Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah, he was involved just enough to where you knew who he was, but detached enough to where it's like, yeah, that's fine if he dies. You know, if they had done that to Kurt Russell or something, it would just be like too much. You know.
Yeah,
So
that's a really good point.
He's kind of the expendable person that you do still care about. It's not somebody you just learned about. Like if they had done it to David Arquette, it's like, who gives a shit? He kind of deserved it. But
yeah,
this guy was.
They paint him as a scumbag at the beginning. Yeah, like
this
whatever.
guy's just
still
good enough
fucked up.
He's just good enough to care about, but not connected enough to really care about to where it's super disturbing. Like dude, if they had done that to Bruder, that would have been.
Yeah.
That would have
been too much.
That would have been too much.
Isn't that interesting? Like if they would have done that to like someone like you build up in your mind, he's an asshole, but he's also like he backs it up and he's like
he's our asshole.
It's like fuck. It's like fuck if they can do that to that guy. It's like what chance do we have? You know, this badass motherfucker. So but yeah, that is a good point because when they do, like to their credit, the film, when they do introduce all the characters and everything, he's definitely on the periphery of that. They don't spend too much time, but I thought it was interesting that they do have a slight poignant moment where him, our deputy Nick, who gets fucking filleted in half, he's playing checkers with Chicory. And they're playing, you know, and Chicory's like, fuck. He's like, how are you so good at this? You know, and he's like, hey, I had 4 brothers and we grew up in Montana, or we
cold
weather. We grew up in the mountain, cold weather, you know, so we had a lot of time inside. So that gives you an idea, like, you know, he was close with his brothers and like, you know, like this and that. So yeah, I think that's a good call. Like they just give you enough to where you like this guy's probably a good guy, but they don't center in on him enough to where it's like this
devastating when he dies.
Fucking completely devastate you. Yeah, even though how hardcore it is. But yeah, I think that scene probably is where the whole like this shit's fucking super gory. It's super. I mean, that takes place over 5 seconds, 10 seconds of the film. And even this last third of the film, where most of the really fucked up stuff happens, is the last 20 minutes of the film, you know? So I think this director, and he wrote this actually as well, all three films that he's directed, he has written and directed. I like this guy too because S. Craig Zoller, he's like he ran a kitchen. He was like a manager of a kitchen. He's like a chef guy. Like he's very blue collar, and he just liked writing. And it took him, I think, 9 years before he got someone to bite on Bone Tomahawk. So yeah, he was just grinding, and like this is like kind of his dream, and it got picked up. And every film from this subsequent to this has been like independent, like Brawl on Cell Block 99, which followed this, and then Dragged Across Concrete. He was able to get, you know, Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson to star in those films, and he did everything very independent. So um and this was his feature. Like he had done some shorts, and he had worked as a cinematographer on some other smaller projects. But I think for this being like your first time as a true director and writing this film, like, I mean, hats off to the guy. It's
Yeah.
a super strong showing. And I can see why he's got some other things in the hopper, I think, through like 2024. So I think this is a guy probably like in the next 10 to 15 years, you'll see make more of these kinds of like really gritty, like hard scrabble kind of films.
Well, and it
Because he's
seems like it would
proven
be
he can do it.
seems like it would be such a tough balance, right? Because I mean, one of the biggest takeaways for me is how fucking funny the movie was. I enjoyed the humor of it a lot. So balancing
Mhm.
that with making it an actual good movie, a good western, and also super gory and violent, that's tough to balance all of those things at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. This dude's talented. I mean, I'm remiss in the fact that I didn't mention, and I don't have it in front of me. Maybe it's in the fucking trivia. Um, this guy also he wrote a western book before this film that got a ton of praise, like, and a ton of I think he won an award. But he's written like two or three westerns where people were like, this is like a super like accurate in like the speech and like the time and place that he's choosing to write about. He's gotten a lot of praise heaped on him for like
Hmm.
accuracy of like the timeline and like speech patterns and things like that. So um I mean, he seems very economical too. Like this film was shot in 21 days. I remember when I read that, I was like,
Oh
"Fuck,
shit!
that's crazy!"
I
Like,
did not know that.
um, I guess dipping into trivia here too a little bit as well. So Matthew Fox said that he enjoyed making this film more than any other film or TV project, including Lost, that he's been on, and he had always wanted to be in a western. And this film also, the final movie represents the first draft of this script, which, I mean, I don't have any other metrics to look at or facts, but I have to think that that's a pretty rare deal because I've heard of a lot of films that have gone through rewrites and like upwards of like 15 to 20 different rewrites before you actually get to like day one of shooting what you're going off of. So
Oh,
um
so you're saying it didn't go through changes and then they reverted back to the original? They stuck with the original? Is that what you're saying?
right,
Oh, okay.
right,
Wow.
which is pretty intense. Like, it's almost like I like thinking like baseball terms. Like, if you got a guy up from the farm system and then he just started winning and striking out people like left and right and didn't have any kind of like learning curve. Like, he just went from being like good, like excellent right out of the gate. Um, and just got called up. Like, he played maybe like fall, like A ball or like special A, and then went up to AAA and pitched like 2 games, and then brought him up to the show. You know, like it's pretty meteoric. This guy's rise from like Like it self-professed, you just got to keep grinding. Like I did this for like 9 years before I got Bone Tomahawk picked up, as a chef and like managing a kitchen, so I like that kind of blue collar aspect of this guy, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to see more. I will say his follow-up to this, Cell Block on 90, what is it called? I think it's Cell Block of 99 or Cell Block 99, starring Vince Vaughn, which is it's pretty intense, dude. He beats up a car like Street Fighter 2 style. Like, do you remember like the bonus mission in
E
Street Fighter
Honda.
2? Like, yeah, you'd play like characters and it's like beat the shit out of this car. Vince Vaughn like beats the shit out of a fucking car with his bare hands, like and like destroys it. Um, it's a pretty good film.
I said E Honda, but I think it's any character. But I think the car looks like a Honda.
Yeah, like droid, like just the fan fists, like
Oh yeah.
and then Dragged Across Concrete with Mel Gibson. I had a couple problems with it, but I think out of his three written and directed films that he's done, I think Bone Tomahawk is my favorite out of those three. But
I feel like I read an
um,
article a while back from, I don't know, somebody like Slate or one of those fucking rags where it was talking about Dragged Across Concrete was like a right wing propaganda.
dude, it's not. It's really not. It's an action film. It's a really gritty cop, fucking violent action film. That's all it is. They could have said the same thing about fucking Goodfellas.
Yeah.
If Goodfellas was made today, they'd say the same fucking thing about fucking The Departed. They would say the same thing. It's just when he made that. And I mean, not to be a Mel Gibson apologist, he's got his baggage, so that right away opens you up as a target, like having Mel Gibson as your lead actor in a film. Because I think post his like freak out, like he's been relegated to a certain kind of role and a certain quality of movie. But I think he was a really good get in Dragged Across Concrete, with paired with this guy having no Hollywood pretension about him. See, I mean, that's my take on him. Yeah, I think all of his films are good. This one, Bone Tomahawk, is my favorite. It's the standout of the three, but I'm excited to see what he comes out with beyond this. I kind of like think of him as the same as that guy. I think his name's Taylor Sheridan, who did Wind River. He did fuck, what else has he done? He did a movie with I have to edit this because I'm fucking on one. He did one with Jeff Bridges and another guy. The fuck? Who am I thinking of? I think it was Hell or High Water. Have you ever seen the movie Hell or High Water?
I have.
Okay,
I
so
liked
that guy. Yeah, what did you think of that one?
I liked it. I had heard so much about it leading up to it that it was like the greatest movie since No Country for Old Men.
That's a stretch.
It is. So when I watched it, I was a little disappointed, but it's still, I enjoyed it, but
I can see someone comparing it to that, but yeah, it's definitely not of that caliber.
right.
But
It is not.
yeah, I think so. Right now, I'm way past the curve on all this, but I guess Yellowstone is like all the rage right now. He's part of that, but before that, he wrote Sicario, which I like Sicario, good enough, with Benicio del Toro, Emily Blunt, and who else was it?
Haven't seen it. Heard it's
The
good.
dude who played Llewellyn. Oh, Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah, pretty much anything he's been in the last 10 years has been great. But yeah, he did Wind River, Hell or High Water. I think of this guy kind of like along that same kind of wavelength. Maybe not quite cowboyish. I guess I'm kind of biased because we're talking about a Western here, but I think of him and Taylor Sheridan kind of along the same wavelength. They're kind of indie. They don't have a lot of like Hollywood or like big picture support, and they're just making like really good shit, really gritty uh, stuff. So um, it's not my favorite, but I really did enjoy Bone Tomahawk. And I guess to wrap this up too, so one of the most badass parts to me was uh, so after our poor Deputy Nick gets fucking sawed in half, they Chicory and Kurt Russell do have a tincture of opium, which was being used to help Arthur with his bum leg, and they also have whiskey. And they ask, what do they ask the doctor? They're like, how much of this would fuck someone up, or
Well, you
what do they
love
do?
this. You love this because you love referring to liquor in terms of fingers. So, pause for you to react. Um, yeah, they have the flask of tincture opium, and I think they ask her, how fatal would 2 fingers worth be, and I think she says 3 people, or
Yeah,
maybe
she's
that's just
like, she says something like the first person who drinks off of it will kill them. The second person, like, it'll knock them out for like fucking 48 hours or 24 hours or something. And the third will be like a minimal effect. Like, who
no,
takes a sip off this bottle? Wasn't
no,
that what it was?
no, I think that's what she said after the fact, because
Oh, okay.
when the 3 dudes came in and they're like, "Oh, yum, this is really good," and they snatched it, I think she saw how much, like, the first guy drank some, the second guy drank more, the third guy drank a little bit or whatever, and then threw the flask in the fire and then left. And they were like, the dudes asked her, "What do you think's going on?" And she said, I think, I think anyway, she said, the first guy's going to be out for 48 hours, but he'll be fine. The second guy's going to die, and the third guy's going to be fine. I think just based on how much they each drank. Could be
Right.
wrong, but
So Kurt Russell and Chicory set up this thing where they put this opium tincture in the whiskey flask, and then they set up like a theatrical, like, okay, when these fuckers come back, these troglodytes, to check on us or try to eat us or do whatever, we're gonna fight over this bottle like it's something really tasty. And they're like, no, give me a drink. No, it's my drink, you asshole, whatever. So that ends that. I think this is probably the flimsiest part of this film, but the troglodytes see what's happening and they're like, they grunt at each other and fucking whistle, and they're like, okay, maybe this is something that we want. So they snatch the fucking flask. First guy drinks it, second guy takes a drink, third guy takes a drink, and they have this weird like lava fire pit in the middle of this like prison area, and they just toss it in the fire. So this fucking metal flask is sitting in the fire and it's warming up quickly. They go away. Um, they come back because there's some kind of disturbance and they realize, like, these fuckers did something to us. One of the troglodytes is dead. The second one is like the big badass motherfucker with like boar horns through his lips and shit, and he's built like a brick shithouse. He's like 6'5", 275 pounds, motherfucking, like, you don't want to deal with this guy. He pulls Kurt Russell out, and they fucking take a slit, like right where his fucking liver is, probably, and then they jam this scalding this hot metal flask that's been burning in this fire, and they shove it like in his innards. And that was the second part that, like, I was like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
yeah,
Like, that was really hard to watch. And it's like it's such a weird thing, to like build into your movie. Like this is what's happening right now.
yeah,
They just buried a fucking 200 Celsius fucking metal flask into your guts. And then, like, I guess we forgot to talk about these troglodytes all speak through like these fucking weird whistles and sounds and shit. Like they've taken bones and they've embedded them into their fucking larynx or whatever, and that's how they speak to one another. Well, our guy Arthur, who's like pulling up the rear on his bum ass leg, he's here to save the day, crawling like army style all the way up to this fucking cave. He kills one of these. He kills a handful of troglodytes, I think,
Mm-hmm.
but he ends up. He's like, "Oh, what is this? Some jewelry?" He fucking rips out this chest piece, this throat piece of these whistle that these people are communicating with. I thought that was kind of a little bit of like a leap of logic in the plot. Like he could have easily bypassed that, but he's like, "Oh, what is this in your throat? You know, is this jewelry?" And they take a really long time to show him cutting that fucking thing out of this person's throat, which I
Yeah.
didn't like either. Anyway,
Then the
he
leap to
puts
like,
two and two together.
I can use this to make noise to attract the others.
Right? Yeah, I think that's another. Any dings that I have on this film are that part of it, like him putting two and two together really quickly, like us, the audience, has already seen other things. Like, oh yeah, like that's how they speak to one another. Like he's coming across this body for the first time and seeing like three holes of bone jutting out of someone's fucking throat. So that's kind of a leap, but I'm fine with it. Whatever.
Yeah.
So he ends up coming out, drawing some people out, and then this is where we get like the most like satisfying like revenge part for me is where uh our big ass like the apex predator of the apex predators with the boar tooth motherfucker, he gets distracted enough like by hearing this sound that Kurt Russell grabs a bone tomahawk that is just within reach of him, and he slices this motherfucker's foot off like halfway through the foot. So he's pretty much got like a stub, and he proceeds to like flip over, get over the front of him, and fucking he does like 3 or 4 hacks, and he cuts this dude's head off. Pretty brutally, and like they don't shy away from it, and I thought that was pretty satisfying. Like that was like a really good like send off, because we know at this point, okay, Kurt Russell, they also shot him in the gut. He's wearing a flask in his stomach.
Well,
That's a billion
there's also
degrees.
the very
He gets his
intense
hand, he gets like 2 fingers cut off too.
the intense part where the native is standing over him with the gun, can't figure out how to reload it, and then
Yeah,
when he does figure it out, he shoots him once, and that's when he
cocks the repeater.
shouts to Arthur, cuts his foot off, but by then, that's when I think that's when he takes a shot to the chest, when he learns how to reload it, and he shouts to Arthur, he's in here, and he takes a shot, and then it's pretty much over for him at that point.
Yeah, so we know our guy, Kurt Russell. He's done for. So that it was pretty satisfying to see him cut this fucker's head off. Like that was pretty brutal, pretty badass. And then we get to the point where it's like, okay, Kurt Russell's the last man standing. He's got the repeater. He's gonna kill whoever comes through. The main chamber of this hideout for these troglodytes. And like the coolest moment I thought was like the moment we have with him and Chicory, because Chicory's wife has died. They plant that seed a lot earlier. He goes and visits her grave, so he's a bachelor, whereas Kurt Russell is still married. Like, and before he leaves, like the wife is like, "Oh, you don't have to go, blah blah blah. Come back to me alive, this and that." So there's a cool moment at the very end where we know Kurt Russell's not coming back from this, and Chicory's standing there looking at him. They don't know what to say to each other, and he's like, say goodbye to my wife and I'll say hello to yours. I thought that was cool. Like, and he like gives them a nod and they fucking go. I liked that moment quite a bit. It was very like to the point. It wasn't over dramatic. They didn't overplay it. Like, so yeah, that's where it leaves us. And the chicory Arthur on his bum ass leg and his wife get out. There's that weird scene where it shows
Wait.
the fucking women.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention because
Go for it. That part was gnarly.
well, yeah, because earlier Samantha, when they had asked him like how many people are we dealing with here, she said, I think 12 men and then 2 women who are pregnant, blind, and bound or something is what she
Yeah.
said. So
Whew.
when they go to leave, they see these 2 women pregnant, bound with stakes in their fucking eyes.
Yeah.
And
They were like big stakes too.
I thought this would be uh, a sort of harken back to Bruder talking about like killing women and kids because they can just as easily kill you. Um,
Right.
so when they're walking by and they see 2 pregnant women pregnant with the next generation of crazy ass dudes that are going to kill them, I kind of
Right.
thought that they would do what might seemed unfavorable and just kill them both.
Right.
Probably for their own benefit. Actually, these 2 chicks who are chained up, blind, pregnant.
Yeah, yeah, because if they're
perpetually.
chained up and blind and all these males have been killed, ostensibly, um, they're gonna birth these poor children and they're gonna die within like 5 days of being birthed out of them and have like a horrible like 6 day existence and starve out and die.
Do you think maybe they were
So
setting up a sequel?
I don't think so because of who this guy is who made this film and just because it was an indie picture. Um, I don't think they were thinking of that at all. Like this was just like a straight standalone like. But I can see where you're coming from, like in 2 ways. So like, yeah, we should like in one sense, we should put these women out of their misery. Straight up. And then 2, what if there are some males in this tribe that do come back and the cycle just perpetuates itself and like these kids get born and the males raise them and train them to be who they are and then you have another enclave of these just really disgusting cannibals.
Yeah.
So but I can also see them just being like in that moment of like exhaustion and like terror and like wanting to get out and like seeing this horrifying thing and then just like keep on moving. But yeah, that part was really fucked up. And I thought too, like it looked like it looked like there's 2 women. They're
Mm-hmm.
blinded. They have these fucking like bludgeons in their eyes. It looked like one of them had no arms.
Well,
Did
I
you
didn't
notice
notice.
that, or was that
I
just
didn't.
me?
No, I didn't notice
It
that.
looked like one of them was just like all like no arms, like blinded with bludgeons in her eyes, super pregnant, and maybe even cut off at the knee. Like they were just like laying on these like stone
Jesus.
like this area where like yeah they just used these women that they came across. Who knows where they were from, but this tribe used these women just to impregnate and continue their line of male dominated like psycho cannibal cult on this hill.
Yeah, but
Um,
I didn't see any males there, any young males. They all seem to be of age, so I don't know how they're perpetuating.
yeah, I guess that's one of the things. Maybe if you look at that a little bit too long or too
Yeah,
hard, it kind of falls apart a little bit. But at any rate, that was a disturbing scene
yeah,
when they get out. It's like, oh, the terror's not over. Here's one last thing before you leave. Like these poor fucking women just blind and like wallering in this cave, like just ready to
yeah.
shit out the next line of like psychopaths.
Should have killed him.
Yeah, I think there's an argument for either way, but yeah, so without hopefully we didn't belabor this too much, but that's Bone Tomahawk, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. I think it's a really good different take on Western because for his gory and his horror as it leans into, I wouldn't call this a I don't think I'd call this a horror film.
No, I
I'd just
wouldn't.
call it it's an intense fucking Western.
Yeah.
So okay. Do you have any final thoughts about this flick? Do you want to talk about anything we breezed over that you can think of now?
No, nope, I don't think
No,
so.
no, I want to hear it from your lips.
Nope. Nope. Another fun one.
Yeah, totally. One thing this made me think. I remember when I was watching this, I was like, dude, I remember the time you sent me a meme of because I'm a big Lost guy. I love Lost, and one time you sent me a meme. It's of Jack from Lost, Matthew Fox, and he's like biting his lip, and he looks like he's just about to cry. And above the meme, it says, "When you're 8 White Claws deep and Drops of Jupiter comes on." Dude, I remember the first time you sent me that. I about died. Like I probably got ejected from my seat wherever I was laughing because I identified. It's funny because it's not just the loss factor, but also because you know that I love Drops of Jupiter by Train.
Yep.
It hit me. It was like a 1-2, like babdoosh, like you're done.
It's funny. I didn't even realize whatever shitty actor you were talking about. I didn't realize the Lost connection. I just knew you liked really bad music, like Drops of Jupiter.
Dude,
So that was just an unintentional 1-2 punch. Wow.
Yeah, it was it when you had sent it to me, it just hit me perfect. I'll share that on our socials because it's like the perfect encapsulation of a meme of like the emotion this guy's wearing on his face and then what's behind it. Like it's perfect. Because it's like so true. I could be that. I could feel being 8 White Claws deep and like being at a bar and someone like hits that on karaoke or like they just start blasting Drops of Jupiter, dude. I would just be like, dude,
Yeah,
this
you
is
would be a problem.
2001.
You
Yeah.
would be a problem.
This is 2001 all over again. All right, cool. So that's that flick. If you haven't seen Bone Tomahawk, it's a banger. It's a good Western.
It's a good one.
It's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay. I do have some quick hitters about this. Oh yeah, I thought this was interesting. So our guy Bruder, Matthew Fox, he wears the same exact style pistol holster as Johnny Ringo from Tombstone. Michael Bain. Which I think this is a good entry point. I remember I talked about floating an idea for a new segment, and because of our mutual love for Bill Paxton, I floated. So my idea is, I mean, it's not novel. It's like it's a carbon copy of 6 Degrees of Bacon. Kevin Bacon, you've heard of that before, like 6 Degrees of Separation, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
I thought, and we can tweak this too, but all paths lead back to Bill Paxton.
Yep.
Let's see if we can tie whatever we're talking about, even if it's not a movie. Let's see if we can tie it back to Bill Paxton. I think this might be easy pickings for you to take a crack at. Are you able to tie Bone Tomahawk back to Bill Paxton either through actor or anyone, director, writer involved with this film? This should be a gimme. I will say, not to put pressure on you if you think about the lead actor.
Well, first of all, it's Michael Biehn, not Michael
Is it?
Biehn. Yeah.
I always thought it was Bane.
No, you're wrong.
God damn it. I'm gonna laugh in your face when you don't
Well,
get this.
it's got to be Tombstone, right? With
That's the easiest. Yeah,
okay,
perfect.
okay,
And that's good enough. That's fine. That's what I was gonna go off of too. But like, yeah, like Kurt Russell. He worked with Kurt Russell on Tombstone. And he
yeah.
played. What was his character?
Morgan,
Morgan Earp. Yep, there you go. Alongside Sam. Uh,
Elliot.
Sam Elliott.
Wow, maybe I should be testing you.
Yeah, right. Okay, so
Oh,
that's our.
here's my cat.
Uh,
She's been napping.
I've been working on my Tim Allen grunt. No. Every time I do it, my son looks over at me and he like, stops what he's doing and he fucking just smiles like a big fat idiot that he is. It's pretty funny.
Here, that's for you. Just
Cat butthole,
cat
front and
butthole
center,
on the camera.
staring into the void. All right. Cool. Well, that was Bone Tomahawk. Check it out. Awesome cast. Awesome film. We do a little bit of housekeeping here. We have a new review on. This is from Apple Podcasts. This is actually from our boy Hyderberg, who I know from the Straight Chilling community. He is also 1/3 of the A Cut Above horror review podcast, who's had me on a couple times as well. Shout out to them. I think they just did Terrifier 2. They're on like episode 71 or 72. They're fucking just trucking. So check them out for sure. But he left us a nice little review that I'll share for us here. From Hyderberg on Apple Podcasts. Wax Up Porp. Listening to G Baby enlighten his buddy Steve with his wealth of film knowledge is hilarious. G Baby is doing the Lord's work, helping Steve out with his awful taste in movies. He needs some milk. Jokes aside, Steve really shines on the research side, especially during one of their missing persons / mystery episodes. Check out the big brain on Brad. They both have great chemistry, and learning their in-jokes is part of the charm of the cast. That's my cat. Anyway, just want to say keep waxing and keep it creepy. Well, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you, Hyderberg. Friend of the show, friend in general. Appreciate you, my guy. Yeah, I think this has been a pretty fun venture so far. I feel good about the track record, and I think there's many more gems to come here. So, one I'm excited to. I think it's maybe in 2 or 3 weeks or more down the road. We're going to be talking about. We got our buddy John, staring John, locked up for McCabe and Miss Miller, starring Warren Beatty and Julie Christie from 1971. That film's a fucking banger. I'm really excited to talk about that one once we get there. But I think that'll be one that you really like too, Steve. That wasn't one on my radar at all. I had there was a time when we still lived in the area. Me and my wife would go to my father-in-law's house and we would cook dinner and hang out with him, and he'd pick the movie. So I got to see, like, I'd never seen The Dirty Dozen before. Bunch of cool shit, like older films that I'd never seen. And one night he put on, he's like, "You ever seen McCabe and Miss Miller?" And I was like, "Nope." We checked it out and it was fucking great. It was like one of the more, I would say, one of the more perfect film watching experiences I've had, which is, I think it's pretty substantial for me. So I'm really curious to see what you think about that one and how it hits you. But next week, tentatively, we have planned to talk to our buddy Dick Dog, aka Richard, about it's going to be. It could be a 101, but potentially it could be more down the road, like multiple volumes, a la the Confessions of a Card Counter our series that we did with Steve previous. But tentative for next week, our buddy Rich will come on and really just kind of just bullshitting but also trying to like stick to kind of his life story. Specifically, his mother was brutally murdered a couple decades ago that he wants to talk about and bring light to. So, potentially next week, that's what we'll be talking about, him. And honestly, like, I'm thinking about it, like his life story is like, I think about, without disrespect to him, only in the best way. It's like Joe Dirt meets Don Quixote. It's kind of a wild kind of journey that he's taken through his life, and he's just chock full of funny stories and anecdotes that I think will be really fun to talk about. So stay tuned. That's what we have tentatively planned for next week. So it'll be a little bit of a departure from our regular topics, but I think it'll be an awesome chat and good conversation regardless. So yeah, I think that'll do it for us. You got any final thoughts, Steve-O, before we call this one?
No, I don't think so. Dick is one of my favorite people that I've ever met in my entire life. So if you're still listening, you're going to want to listen next week because he's a good dude.
I think that's totally. I think that's a common thread. He's one of those rare people, I think, in the world that I think anyone that's spent any amount of time or even talked with him in passing, he or she would classify them as that, like one of my favorite people, like one of these unique people that you come across in life that's just chock full of good stuff. So yeah, I think that'll be fun. So stay tuned. If anything changes, maybe we'll update the socials. If we need a little bit more time, we'll skip to something else. But if you have anything to say in general or any thoughts about Bone Tomahawk, you can reach out to us at our email is wax@waxingtheporpoise.com, or you can hit us on either of our socials. Instagram is Waxing the Porpoise, or Twitter @WaxingThePorp. Thank you very much for joining us, Steve-O. As always, fun discussion. I'm glad you liked this flick.
Oh yeah,
chalk another win in the for the good guys. And
yes, sir.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Thank you.
That's fucking interesting, man. That's fucking interesting.